The Somewhere in the Ring podcast is part of the Lionsgate and eOne podcast network. We hope you enjoy jumping in with Andrew and Ryan somewhere in the ring.
The following podcast is scheduled for one recording with no time limit. Making their way down to Somewhere in the Ring, Andrew Sanford and Ryan Sprague.
I don't know why I'm doing it. We are going to have to pay for it. Little ditty about Jack and Diane. No, we don't.
Dude, I have been listening to so much John Cougar lately. What a synchronicity. I'm talking like the early days, too.
Sure. I would like everybody to know that Ryan hasn't been feeling well. First of all, this is Somewhere in the Ring, a podcast where we talk about wrestling and lots of other fun stuff, but mostly wrestling. I'm Andrew Sanford, joined as always by my friend and co-host, Ryan Sprague. And Ryan hasn't been feeling great. And the way he just lit up when I brought up John Cougar Mellencamp, it was respect.
I know. I think that was all I needed. That was the medication I needed, was to hear that.
Yep,
sweet,
you needed
sweet
a little
Jack Diane.
JCM to the veins.
He is such a miserable man now. He reminds me so much of like Steve Miller, who like refused to be put in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's just like, yeah, dude.
When?
A while ago. Like,
yeah, because I know he's not the first nor the last probably, but I was wondering, is he? I would love to know his reasons, because I feel like people recently have been like, why would I want to go in there? Hip hop people are in there now, and like, which I get to an extent.
Yeah. I unfortunately feel like he was one of those who said that verbatim.
Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah, it's one of the it's like, I get it, but it's weird. But it is like, it's like, come on, guys, does it really matter? They're just gonna spend a night talking about how great you are. Is that like really? You're just like, no thanks.
I'm good,
because the hip hop guys there.
Yeah.
Silly. But hey, we're here to talk about some wrestling. There's some good wrestling stuff going on, and there's good stuff for us going on. We have an exciting announcement right at the top. We are now part of Lionsgate Sound.
Woo, baby.
Yes. Brand new branding, brand new company. Well, it's like a company that we were part of the eOne podcast network. eOne is now part of Lionsgate Sound, or now is Lionsgate Sound. So happy to be a part of this team. Check out some other Lionsgate Sound podcasts. There's incredible stuff out there.
Dude, some legit stuff. I mean, we're kind of in the big leagues now. Yeah. We went from like the indies straight up to WWE within like a month, and that's because we're amazing.
That's true. That's true. You said it, not me. But I'm not gonna disagree with you. But yeah, so join us every week. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/somewhere in the ring. Got some match commentaries over there. We're going to be doing interviews on here. We've been doing Somewhere in the Indies on Fridays. We've been we're having more guests come on that don't know much about wrestling, that we are just going to bombard with the craziest matches they have ever seen. Lots of fun stuff on the horizon, and we are thankful and grateful to have Lionsgate have our backs while we're doing all that. But before we get into some of the other fun stuff, like today, we're going to be talking about our 3 favorite urban legends of pro wrestling. Each of us have our own 3. And I get into a little bit of the news. And just this past week and a half, kicked off a documentary show called Who Killed WCW, which is on the Vice network, which I honestly did not know was still a thing, because I thought Vice got bought out, went under some other, bought by a big tech company so they can produce AI articles or whatever's going on for a lot of those places. Yeah, I know, it's very sad. But we watched the first episode of Who Killed WCW. And I'm just going to say it right off the top. If you have watched anything about WCW in the past decade, you have seen this documentary already. You have seen the show already. I would even say not even the last decade, the last 20 years. I feel like that Monday Night Wars show was on like 15 years ago. But this one, produced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and his manager, Danny Garcia. it was very underwhelming for me personally. I expected maybe some new interviews. One thing I will say, I love Eric Bischoff. Nobody's perfect. I'm not saying like yada yada yada, but it's always fun to hear him talk. I feel like he has a clear view of things, and it was interesting to like for the little snippets about him getting into the business. But it's just a lot of information that we've already heard ad nauseum about the Bash at the Beach, forming of NWO, how WCW got started, the Medusa throwing the belt into the garbage can. Though I don't know if I've ever seen her talk about that before. The signing of Hulk Hogan, like all that. Maybe the show will progress in such a way that gives us some kind of new information, but I thought the first episode was kind of a mid, as the children say. One thing I will say, yeah, it's nice that it wasn't produced by the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, more on that in a second. So we did get to see a lot of we get to hear a lot of people who were there, a lot of WCW folks, a lot of look, some of them are older and don't care as much anymore. So they're kind of being a little bit more flippant or a little bit more honest. But The Rock is there. I'm assuming because he's a producer, he's a talking head in this episode, and it just makes no sense.
Nope.
It makes no sense to hear from him at all. And also, the man is on the board at TKO, and he produced this. So it's still got that, it's almost like mob speak kind of stuff. It's like, oh, WWE didn't produce it, but a guy who's on the board of the company that owns WWE produced it. So
a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy.
A guy who knows a guy knows a guy.
Dude,
but it's, yeah. What did you think?
So, first of all, great that they put the first episode out for free. I do suggest people go watch it on YouTube, Vice TV's YouTube. Yeah, I think that's a great, business model to get,
especially if you would like to see an ad that YouTube is going to give you, and then in the middle an ad for the show that you're already watching for whatever reason. I had to watch 3 commercials for Who Killed WCW while I was watching Who Killed WCW. I feel like the same thing happens with Dark Side of the Ring too, but
yeah,
I get the Vice TV thing.
I think it is. That being said, I love Dark Side of the Ring.
Same.
Yeah,
Same.
I've had one of the creators of that show on my UFO podcast.
Yep.
And we're hoping
who made a wonderful short film about aliens, right?
Exactly.
Didn't he? Yes.
Alien,
the sleepover. It was like a sleepover.
Yep.
Thing on one of the VHS movies, which was great.
Boom. Yeah, you and I
that on your podcast before. Yep. Yeah. Yep. He's
awesome.
Really talented.
Dark Side of the Ring was, really shook things up and gave us a peek behind the curtain. And I think what's wrong with Who Killed WCW, because we're the be all end all here. But we are a wrestling podcast, and we are the people who would watch this.
Sure.
I will say, after watching this episode, I'm good. It's like they took the Monday Night Wars and put it all into one episode and threw it out there. And I'm kind of like, what is there left to say?
I was actually wondering that. Yeah, because I wonder how many episodes it is. Because I was like, could this have just been an hour and a half long documentary? I feels like they were stretching it out.
Yeah, I will say this, Andrew. I think it's ruffling the feathers of those who are getting blamed for Who Killed WCW.
I would, yes, that is
on Twitter, especially.
Yep.
I mean, you saw Ric Flair on Instagram, I think it was actually, saying who he believes killed it. You've got Vince Russo biting back and saying who he thinks killed it. So, if anything, it's drumming up all these old feelings that I'm sure a lot of these guys were ready to just move on. And then, like you said, you've got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the rabble rouser, getting everyone riled up again with this thing. So I don't know. I don't see the purpose or motivation behind this series. I don't know why we needed it. But who's to say? Who's to say?
I mean, and I think that's fair, especially after the fact, because there is no easy answer. I think that's what it's proving, and that doesn't make as interesting as a thing. even though some people do think that there's an easy answer, like it's just a little too muddied. Who knows? Like maybe it'll get better in the other episodes, but yeah, I would probably tap out at this point as well.
Yeah.
But again, like it's fun to. I love Kevin Nash. Like it's fun to hear Kevin Nash talk. Like there is getting to hear Bischoff talk, getting to hear Booker T talk. Like there is something to be said for reaching out to these guys 25 years after WCW went under, 24 years. But there was just, and you know, what kind of clarity they would have now or what they'd be willing to say versus what they weren't willing to say before. But it just felt very old hat. It felt like stuff we've already heard all these guys talk about ad nauseum. So,
right. But who knows? Maybe they've got some cards up their sleeve. So
yeah, maybe.
I will say this. I'm going to watch the second episode and see like if it gets any, I don't want to say better because it's very well produced.
Yes.
It's great. But
right.
At the end of the day, do we want this? Do we care enough?
Right.
We know WCW's gone. We know all the people who could be blamed. There's clearly not one person to blame in all this. And maybe that alone is the point of this.
And if it was something where they were just like, if they're like, hey, we got Ted Turner to sit down for 25 minutes.
Seriously.
Then I would be like, let's go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do want to hear from him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to hear from David Arquette.
I kept thinking too. I had to look up at one point. I was like, oh, has Ted Turner passed? And he hasn't. And I got to say, he's one of those few billionaires who I'm just like, he seems okay. I'm sure if I looked things up, but like if you look at his controversy page, it's on Wikipedia. It's like him being pretty rad.
Okay.
To be controversial. So
that's the first thing I always go to on Wikipedia. It's like the controversy at the bottom.
Of course. Especially for somebody rich. But yeah. So
we'll see, man. We'll see.
Yeah. You can thank Ted Turner for Cartoon Network.
That's true.
He he bought all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons and was like, I need a place to show these. I assume that's what he sounds like.
Pretty damn
Thank you. We got some other news for this week. Probably the biggest news this past week in the wrestling world is that Ricochet, all done at the WWE, it looks like. There's my guy. He has been there about 6 years, informed the company that he would not be renewing his contract, and as they are wont to do, they were like, okay, well, we're going to take you off TV right away then, which is pretty interesting. I think what's kind of funny there is that because I'm assuming he leaked the fact that he was giving them his notice early, it's still going to do him more good than harm. Like if it's so funny to me because I was like, you probably could have just left him on TV and put him in like subpar matches if you wanted to, because WWE notoriously, they have their no compete clauses where like, yes, people get paid, but they still like, everybody knows that TV time is what you need for for wrestling. You need that. You need to be out there. That's how you keep your stock up. But Ricochet, they were just like, all right, if you're leaving, we're gonna have Braun Breaker put you through a car, and then we're just not gonna see you again. And
what an exit interview.
Like and Ricochet was huge before he got to WWE, very popular in the indie circuit. And I mean, we'll see. It's so funny to me that within the last month or two, there was a point in time, especially even when we started this podcast, where it's like, yeah, if somebody leaves, they got someplace else they can go and they can make a big name for themselves. And now we have watched that other place bury people almost as soon as they get them. They get them, but they just because they need to fill up their toy box, and then because their toy box is so full, they don't know what to play with. So some of the toys get unplayed with, and we don't see people for months that have signed on. And it's rough. Whereas surprisingly enough, the place to like really build your stock back up seems to be TNA or New Japan currently. So I could see Ricochet going to New Japan. I don't see him going to AEW personally, but you never know. I just think he wants to be a main eventer, as he should. He's fantastic. Like,
okay,
I'm
gonna push back a little bit.
Go ahead,
just a little. While I agree, he is probably one of the best, if not the best, athlete and high flying wrestler out there. No doubt. No argument from me on that at all. The reason I personally don't think he ever really made it to main event is the guy, to me, he just doesn't have the promo work. He doesn't have the personality, and he doesn't have, a character. And
Sure.
look, like, I know sometimes the title can make the wrestler or the wrestler can make the title. Unfortunately for someone like Ricochet, I just feel like had he more time to develop a character, his biggest, I feel like, moment was with Logan Paul when they had that kind of thing going on with Logan Paul, Samantha Irvin, and him, and that should have made him. And what happened, like, a month after that, he was back down to almost being a jobber at one point. It was kind of sad.
I mean, yeah, I look, the mic skills, I think I go back and forth on. I think it's all though, like, you just need more time. You need a chance to cut more promos. You need for whatever reason, they just did not push this guy in any way that felt significant ever.
Yeah.
And I told you this before we recorded. I feel like giving him that stupid speed title was the last straw. Like, it's just like, what? It's just pointless. A pointless thing. I also wonder, have they done any more matches since X started platforming pornography? I haven't seen.
Yes.
They have?
It's been, I mean, I think it's out now. Like, Ricochet is no longer the speed champion. There is a new champion.
Oh, who is it?
It is Andrade, I believe. So I'm gonna say this right now, man. That speed belt is gonna be the new cursed belt, I think.
Good Lord. I mean, and Andrade, like, double dipping for like a company that just does not know how to use him. It's so crazy. That's nuts. So the speed title is just for wrestlers that the WWE's like,
but here, I guess
we have this very talented person. Let's just make them wrestle on Twitter.
Yeah,
like, just
exactly. Woof. And you know what? I do want to say, like, I do respect the hell out of this man. Like, he's an incredible wrestler. And I think he's a lot smarter than people think. And I think wherever he goes next, like, he can negotiate the hell out of it. And a lot of people think, like, being in the WWE is the only place where you can make, like, major money, but it's clearly not true. Like, this dude could go to New Japan. This guy could go to AEW. He could go to TNA. And I guarantee you, because of what he has done and the amount of people who back him, like fans, he can make the same, if not more, somewhere else and maybe be a main eventer. So I think this is a good thing. I really think this is a good thing for Ricochet.
I agree.
Yeah. What will happen with Samantha Irvin? A lot of people are like, oh, she's gonna leave with him. Like, she's mad too. You know what? I think it's great to have him somewhere else and have her still in the WWE. Talk about, like, kind of an empire, like, or a power couple. Like, they don't have to be in the same company. That can't be the one reason Ricochet stays in WWE, you know.
And vice versa. Like, you know, she's got a good gig.
She's not going anywhere.
She's very good at it. Yeah. And you know who else respects Ricochet is a gentleman named MVP. He actually revealed, while this has been going on, that it was, they basically wanted Ricochet to be in the Hurt business. Down between him and Cedric Alexander. And that MVP ended up going with Cedric Alexander because they thought that Ricochet didn't need them as much for, like, the push. Yeah. Which is fair. I don't know what he would have done swallowed up in a stable like that. Like, Ricochet to me should have been booked in the same way that Rey Mysterio has been booked. Like, he's a small guy who it's believable when he beats up big people. And, like, sometimes they were doing that, but just a real fumbled bag on their part. It's like, I honestly think that they screwed up, and he's going to end up hit in the same way that, like, Mustafa Ali is thriving right now. So we'll see. Best wishes to Ricochet. I'm
absolutely
for him.
Yeah. I'm rooting for him too. I know he'll be successful no matter what. Yeah.
Couple more news items that kind of tied into our little SmackDown and Raw recap. So Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles are going to wrestle in an I Quit match at the Clash at the Castle. And don't love I Quit matches.
Really?
Yeah,
Why's that?
I feel like they're the hardest ones for me to buy. If that makes sense. I would prefer a last man standing match over an I Quit match. I think the idea that you get someone to say I quit, like it feels not silly, but that's one of those matches where I'm just like, the walls are kind of broken down for me here, where it's no longer skating that line of reality and fiction. Like last man standing match, you're seeing two wrestlers struggle to get to their feet. It's got more of like a boxing match element to it, things like that. With the I Quit matches, I still can't get over I forget which one it was, but like The Rock was wrestling Mankind in an I Quit match and had a taped recording of him saying, I quit. I quit. Yeah. And it's like that to me. There's just been no coming back from that for me personally.
I know. I feel like every I Quit match after that, I'm like, that's a recording. That's just a recording.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, okay, this is. I don't know. Yeah. I just don't buy it. And the thing is, and I don't buy somebody like AJ Styles saying that he quits, which is going to I get why that ties into him saying that he was going to retire, but he's not retiring, and now he has to say he quits. But especially for all the heel stuff he's going with right now, not my bag, man. Not my bag. Well, looking more forward to CM Punk at Clash at the Castle than anything else.
Well, and that's kind of where I'm at with Clash at the Castle. I'm loving Cody Rhodes' run so far, but we spoke last week, I think it was, about, they don't really know what to do with Cody right now in terms of a good, proper, I guess, opponent. And it seems like they're going through people pretty damn quickly. In fact, now even going back to AJ Styles again. I just don't think something like Clash at the Castle needs it. This McIntyre match alone is going to tear the roof off of that freaking Glasgow stadium that I could not get tickets to.
Well, and I think too, it's the kind of double-edged sword of having the storyline that they had with Cody and Roman, which is that now everybody just kind of assumes well, you're not just going to do all that and then take the belt off of Cody.
Right.
You know what I mean? Especially, I guess not to AJ Styles. I do think AJ Styles is a good opponent as far as he could win kind of a situation. But I think everybody just kind of knows that he won't. And the storyline between them isn't the most interesting. And the Drew McIntyre CM Punk stuff is way more interesting and fruitful and has a little bit more bite to it. And I think people are just more excited about that.
Yeah. I am, to be honest. Same. This is kind of an afterthought. I feel that
I want to see Cody against Gunther, or Randy. I wanted him to be wrestling Randy Orton all summer. You know what I mean? Something like that. Something where it feels there's more. It feels like there's just more there. But
an
I Quit match.
Love it.
And then, we had some bloodline stuff going on. Smackdown. That's another one where I really liked Solo Sikoa, and now they've made him the leader of the bloodline, and he's not as interesting to me, and it's really strange.
He's trying, man. Those suits are great.
They're trying. I just
hear him talk.
I would have much rather them make the bloodline fit him than him fit the bloodline. I liked the whole wrapped hands and shorts and kind of this Street Fighter feel to him. And I think that putting him in a suit just feels weird, even if they're nice suits. You know what I mean? Why not make these guys feel more like a dangerous roving gang kind of a situation, the Outlaws,
which is sort of what Paul Heyman is kind of, I guess, trying to make them in terms of being terrified of them. And,
sure.
They're out of control, but I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing something like Damage Control being much more rambunctious than the bloodline is actually being.
It's nothing says out of control. Yeah, no, nothing says out of control more than buttoning all of your buttons all the way up on your shirt.
Exactly.
Like, it's just, those things
behavior.
matter. Yeah, it's like, the craziest. Let's move on to Raw.
Sure.
Let's move to Raw. This one could be it's more Clash of the Castle stuff, talking about the thing we were interested in. Top of the show, Damian Priest laid out a challenge to Drew McIntyre, saying that if McIntyre could beat Baylor later in the evening, he would agree to have Judgment Day banned from ringside. And McIntyre accepted and then beat Finn Balor. And what's kind of funny about that whole situation, I'm just like, well, no, that's what Damian Priest wants. Another person that I feel like they did. And shout out to Priest for being so rad at the Puerto Rican Day Parade.
Yes. Him and
I love him. I think I'm just not interested in him being like a heel anymore. And Judgment Day, while I love the addition of Carlito, I don't know. I love Carlito so much. I love.
Can
Carlito
I say?
So much.
Did you watch at least the Judgment Day entrance with Carlito from Raw?
Yeah.
That was hilarious. He got so spooked by the pyrotechnics.
He's great.
Like,
so, yeah, I think Judgment Day, they at least have a better idea of like what they have done with the Judgment Day so far has played to everyone's strengths.
Yes.
I do think that now we're learning that like Damian Priest as a leader, like I was just ready for him to leave the group already.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think they're playing to everyone's strengths. I think all the Liv Morgan stuff is crazy.
Don't get me started.
I won't. I will not. I will not. And
this is a PG podcast, guys.
Yeah. But it's I don't know. I think I'm just waiting for that next step. This is also another one where I think he could lose to McIntyre, but I think everybody, kind of assumes that he's probably gonna beat McIntyre, maybe through CM Punk's assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like Damian Priest versus Gunther sounds awesome. And that's what the next step would be, I believe, is that he's going to challenge for that world heavyweight belt. And I think those two could put on a heck of a match at SummerSlam. We'll see. Like that will be one of not the first time, but first time in a while where I feel like Gunther will be going up against somebody where I'm like, this will be like kind of an evenly matched matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, can I talk about another amazing matchup that happened at
Yes,
Raw?
please. Yep.
Yeah. I was texting you last night as the match was happening because I know you were busy, but it was Braun Breaker versus Dragonov. And oh my gosh, man. Like, I think there were 3 commercial breaks during the match.
Wild.
It was probably about an hour long collectively.
Really?
And, oh my God. Did they both just it was so refreshing to see Braun Breaker not just come out, hit a couple spears, and then pinfall and leave and cause destruction. Great. I'm loving that. I'm loving that about his character. But Dragonov, dude, oh my God. I've said it before. The guy can sell like nobody's business. Cool. But last night, it seemed to me like he was going to beat Braun Breaker. There were so many times that Breaker was like on the ground, like terrified of this guy. And it was so believable and just so unbelievably believable, I guess is the contradiction I want to go for. I can't say enough about this match. And this was at the end of this match, I will say Braun Breaker did win. But this is when we possibly got our last glances of Ricochet.
Yeah.
Too. So a lot happened in the span of that, I would say, hour-long matchup. It was incredible.
How did Ricochet get involved? Because I only saw Breaker beating him up after the match.
So basically, Breaker did the thing where he won, and then but he can't be done with his opponent. He's got to continue to, destroy them. So he started to. He hit Dragonov with another spear, and then Ricochet, being the good guy he is, came out for Dragonov's to help out Dragonov.
Came out to help a heel.
Yep.
That's okay. All right.
So that happened. And he learned the hard way and got put through a windshield and got carted off in an ambulance with his wife. So
that tells you even more how WWE was not ready to have him not there. That's so funny. Yep. Wow, what a slapdash. Oh boy.
It was all over the place. I will say this. I really do hope this isn't the last time we see Ricochet. Like, if he's leaving, fine. I get it. He's going to be off TV. Clearly, they set that up. But if that's the last time we see him, like, kudos to him for helping to continue put over Braun Breaker.
Sure.
A very professional move to do on your way out. Obviously, that's what you do in the WWE.
I would argue he probably contractually had no choice, but
probably not. Yeah. But at the same time, like, I just hope we get like a better send off for Ricochet if that is the case. But
that tells you all you need to know about whether or not he's coming back. But we'll see.
Yeah,
I would like to see him at some point too, but it's the same with like Becky Lynch. Like, there's nothing not exactly the same, because I would argue there are things that WWE would at least try with her. But she's kind of done all that she can do in the WWE, whereas Ricochet was just kept being given scraps.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We'll see. I won't bring up Liv Morgan because I know you hate it, and I know it makes you uncomfortable.
I don't hate it. I don't want to see your nipples get hard.
You can't in this beautiful Somewhere in the Ring.
But I can. That is a great hoodie, though. That is a fantastic hoodie.
Thank you. I made it myself.
Should we move on to our urban legends then?
Let's move on to our urban legends. You know, Raw was good, but nothing like groundbreaking happened. We're heading into a pay-per-view, PLE, excuse me, this Saturday. So, I hope.
Cow, is that this Saturday?
Yeah, dude.
Nice.
Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
I will be at a graduation party, but I'll be checking my phone the whole time.
I'll be texting you. I'll be watching.
Please do. Please do.
Let's move to what are we doing? What's this special thing we're doing?
So in pro wrestling, it's been around for a long time, and a lot of, for those who are familiar with the term, there is a kayfabe, which is where they pretend that something, like if a story happens, it's happening in real life. There would be, back in the days of the territories, guys would get injured in the ring and then, not be seen around town. They would stay in their house for weeks to make sure that nobody saw them, or they would walk around with a fake arm, a fake cast on, stuff like that. People would take it really seriously. And I think because of
mop.
Or a mop.
Sorry, I had to.
No, that's okay. Oh, man. Shout out to Perry Saturn. I feel like he was just straight. Is he still missing? We don't need to get into that. There was a while where he was like missing.
Oh, God. I didn't know that.
I believe he's okay now, but I could be wrong about that. But because of kind of like what we were just saying, there's a lot of urban legends about wrestling. There's a lot of things that people think are true, aren't true, things that have been proven, disproven, all kinds of fun stuff. And we're going to each of us came ready with our 3 favorite examples. I can kick us off if you want.
Yeah, please do.
Go to commercial break. Commercial break. Commercial break. Go to commercial. Commercial break.
Hey guys, Ryan Sprague here, and I just wanted to let you know about an awesome event that I'm going to be partaking in on June 28th and June 29th. Small Town Monsters presents Monster Fest 2. The event takes place in downtown Canton, Ohio. Backed by popular demand, Monster Fest 2 will include Small Town Monsters panels, Q&As with guests, Small Town Monsters film premieres, meet and greets with people like me and other authors, other podcasters, and so much more. And if you have kids under the age of 12, they get in for free. So I hope you'll join me and so many others at Monster Fest 2, taking place June 28th and June 29th in Canton, Ohio. To learn more and to get your tickets, visit smalltownmonsters.com. Again, that's smalltownmonsters.com. And I'll see you at Monster Fest 2.
So my first one is Norman Smiley apparently knocked out Rick Steiner with one punch in a bar fight. And now, one main thing that I love about this is to talk about MVP one more time. If you guys are not following MVP on Twitter, you can join Twitter just to follow MVP. He's always active on there. He's a lot of fun. And one of my favorite interactions I've ever had on Twitter was talking to him about Steely Dan songs that he and I both like, because he loves Steely Dan, and that makes me happy. And something he said recently is he was just like, the two people who you will never hear anyone say they have beef with are Norman Smiley and Rey Mysterio. And when he had even said that, he even made a reference to this, saying that if somebody told them that they had a problem with Norman Smiley, he would punch them right in the face, which is just so funny. So yeah, apparently Norman Smiley and man whose son had to distance himself from him recently, Rick Steiner, because Rick Steiner was being transphobic at a Comic-Con to another wrestler. They got in a little scuffle, and Norman Smiley took Rick Steiner down with one punch. And this is something where I looked this up, and once I saw that that's what it is, I refused to do any more research. This is one of those, I was like, I don't want to know if this is fake. I don't know if in my head, it is going to be true for the rest of my life, because Norman Smiley was somebody who I loved. He's trained a bunch of people. I feel like he really hit his prominence in WCW. I think he might have had like a small WWE run. I can't remember. Lovers, not experts.
I believe he did.
But I remember one of my favorite things is he had the hardcore belt in WCW. He might have been one of the, and he was always like scared to be in the matches, but would then like work his way through, and he would do this weird, not like suck it, but he would like hit each side of his crotch. I love Norman Smiley, and the idea, like, he always just seemed like a nice guy, and that was his character, according to Montel Vontavious Porter. That is the case. And he took out this lame dude with one punch. This lame, used to crawl on the dog and pretend to pee ground and pretend to pee on people because he was an out of control, pit bull or whatever nonsense. And Norman Smiley laid him out. So that is my third favorite pro wrestling urban legend.
I love it, and I do hope it's true.
I know it's true. That's what I'm going with.
We're going with it. We should mention, like, the kind of reason we chose to do top 3 urban legends is because I learned recently of an urban legend that Shawn Michaels was given, I believe it was almost $3 million from a super fan of his that passed away, and that he was a millionaire after this fan passed away, gave him all this money, and everyone was like, oh, he doesn't have to wrestle anymore. But he did, and he wanted this to be kept quiet. And everyone was like, is it true? Is it true? It turned out to be true. He did admit that he became a millionaire even before he became a millionaire from wrestling, because of a fan who passed away and gave him all of their entire life savings. And I wanted to know, is it true? Is it true? And I found out that it was true. So I thought, this would be cool for us to do this and see if these urban legends are true or not. So I'm happy we started with this one, man. Because I love it. Yeah.
I apologize in advance, because my next 2 are very hard to prove if they're true or not.
Well, that's not our job. Our job is to continue the urban legends.
Keep the legends going. What's yours? What's your number 3?
Let's go to my number 3. Vern offered the Iron Sheik $100,000 to break Hulk Hogan's legs.
Is it Gagne? Vern Gagne?
Gagne, I believe he was the one who owned what was it? AWA, I think it was called. I've got it right here.
Yeah.
Vern owned AWA, where, let me pull up. I've got the old slideshow, so I might as well put it up. I spent so much damn time on it. All right, Iron Sheik offered $100K to break Hulk Hogan's legs.
There's another one that I am just going to say is true.
I'm going with
because I want it to be.
Well, here's kind of the story behind it. So Vern owned AWA, where Hulk Hogan left to work for Vince McMahon at then WWF, and the Iron Sheik was set to face Hogan to put him over. But apparently, the Sheik went to Vince McMahon and told him that he was offered money to break Hulk's legs to embarrass him and put him out of commission. So Sheik actually went to Vince McMahon and told Vince, this is what happened. I'm not going to do it. I will put Hulk Hogan over. And that was it. He kind of claimed his allegiance to Vince McMahon in that moment, saying, I could have done it. I didn't do it. I'm going to put Hulk over. And this was literally the beginning of Hulkamania. Hulk became a made man like the next day when he easily could have become like someone in a wheelchair for possibly the rest of his life, if not career. So,
well, and then I almost wonder, I'm just like, well, how do you break both legs? Like, I could see somebody, but yeah, get in there, hit one of them with a pipe, and then somebody's probably going to stop you, but at least you got one. Like, how are you going to break both of them is my question. But hey, you never know.
You never know. It would take
like
one hold.
Boston Crab is more of like, that's an abdomen punishment.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Wow. Iron Sheik.
Iron Sheik.
Goodness gracious. That's...
So I'm going with True.
Gawker would still be around if Iron Sheik had... We'll go with True. Okay.
I'm going with True on this one. What's your next one, buddy?
My next one is people claiming that the Montreal Screwjob was a work. And you've had people as recently as the Dark Side of the Ring episode about, I remember Scott Hall pretty forcefully saying that he thought that this was a work. For those who aren't familiar, if you're listening to this, you probably know what a work is. But just in case, a work is basically, fake. Was it fake? Was it planned? Was Bret Hart spitting in Vince McMahon's face planned? Was Earl Hebner doing the count early planned? Was them screwing over Bret Hart before he went over to WCW planned? And planned meaning that Hart was in on it. And that's where I find it the most unbelievable. I think Bret Hart is somebody that will just never shy away from being open about his feelings towards the business, his feeling toward people in the business. He's also somebody like, has he returned to WWE? Yes. Has he like made good with Shawn Michaels? Sure. But money heals a lot of wounds. And I think if they were just like, here's $50,000 to show up for one night, or probably more, to be honest with you, he probably just went with it. And I believe he's still under a Legends contract with them. Like WWE has been paying him pretty consistently for about a decade now, I believe. Yeah. So, but that does not mean that this was like, the reason that I would say that this is probably not true. And this is one of my favorite excerpts from Mick Foley's first book, because I believe he was there the night that happened. There's the rumor, if I remember correctly, Undertaker either wasn't there or was not told about it because everybody knew he would be furious if this happened.
Yes, that's what I remember.
This happened.
Yeah.
But the story that I can definitely confirm is that Bret Hart went back to his dressing room. Vince and Shane followed him in there. Bret turned and said to Vince, I'm going to go take a shower. If you are still here when I get out of the shower, I'm punching you in the mouth. Bret went, took a shower, came back. Vince was still there. Wham, punched him in the mouth. And I don't think you do that if this is a work. So, and I don't think Mick Foley is telling that story if this is a work either. So that's where I land on that. I get why people would think it was a work. I even get Scott Hall makes like a pretty good case for it, but I just don't buy it.
I get it. The only reason I would think this could possibly, elements of it be a work, was that Wrestling with Shadows documentary that came out. You remember that?
I don't actually.
So it came out, Bret Hart was being filmed for a documentary during
while this was
happening.
Whoa.
Yeah. Apparently it was being done through, I believe it was A&E, and it was being co-produced by Bret Hart at the time. And it was during all of this happening, him, having these tensions with Vince McMahon, and then eventually the Montreal Screwjob. And for me, I'm just like, how coincidental could it be that there were cameras following Bret Hart everywhere for a documentary that was going to come out, and then boom, one of the greatest controversies in WWE history happens at the same time. I don't know. That's the only thing that makes me think either some of this was planned or elements of it were, or in retrospect, people are saying that it was or wasn't. I don't know. That's kind of the thing with wrestling, man. Like, as these urban legends live on, it kind of keeps the machine going, and it keeps the mystique going, and that's wrestling. Like, we never know the truth from the fiction with any of this stuff, like, ever.
I will say, I think if anything, Bret Hart, being the smart businessman that he is, probably had that documentary crew because he knew he was leaving already.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that. But I hear you. It's pretty wild that they that those things were caught on camera. That's nuts. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Check it out if you haven't. And everyone
I will.
listening, check out Wrestling with Shadows. It's a wonderful documentary, but it captured all of this, the backstage stuff. It captured Vince McMahon coming out of the locker room, having just been punched by Bret Hart.
Wow.
Like, this was all caught on camera. This isn't
Wow. I don't think I knew that. Wow.
Yep. Yeah, check it out. That's a great one, man. That's a great one. My next one is a little morbid, but I thought it was hilarious, and that is the Ultimate Warrior replaced after dying. So back in the early 90s, there was a bunch of rumors that the Ultimate Warrior, who returned at WrestleMania 8, was not the same Warrior who beat Hulk Hogan for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 6. So apparently, the new Warrior had a different hairdo, new ring gear, and a leaner physique, thus making it likely that he was a totally different person. And as for the fate of the original Warrior, this is where it gets even crazier. There were various conspiracy theories claiming that he died in some sort of freak accident. And one of the biggest rumors came out of the Philippines. I didn't know about this. In the Philippines, there was a legend that the OG Warrior popped a vein while trying to body slam Andre the Giant and died shortly thereafter. Sadly, Warrior died for real. Warrior died for real on April 8th, 2014, just days after he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame.
I remember that. That was so one sad. Of those. Oh, man. It was really sad. But I remember him giving a speech on Raw, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at him and being like, my mom's favorite thing to say about wrestlers is like, that guy looks like he's about to pop. She used to say that about Ric Flair all the time.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, I was like, he looks like he's about to pop. And it did not look great. That's nuts. I also, how long in between, how much time had passed between him not being there and him being there?
I'm going to say it said between two WrestleManias. So at least like 2 years.
So about a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Huh.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, crazier things have happened. I don't know.
All I'm going to say is that I don't want to ever hear anybody make fun of Clark Kent's disguise being glasses anymore because people are dumb. Like, oh, I'm sorry, the guy went away for a year and now his hair is different, and you're like, what? Like,
or his physique changed.
Yeah, my kids watch Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, which is like a spin-off of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and there's a whole episode about like their teacher puts her hair up instead of having it down, and Daniel's like, oh, why do you look different? What? And it's like, for children, for kids, they have to explain that. So that's funny though. That's
try explaining to young kids in the Philippines. Yeah, dude's vein popped from lifting someone and he died on the spot. Like, how scary is that?
I also think it speaks to like just a different time too. Like I noticed in the urban legends that we have and that we're talking about, especially, there's nothing from like the last 8 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or like even the last 10 years, maybe. Like, it's all stuff that like came at a time when you didn't have, like, the internet might have existed, but it was in its infancy, and everybody was just learning things from their, older brother who lives in the basement, like that kind of stuff. Like, it was just stuff passed around. So I like that one a lot. That's pretty wild. I feel like it's not the only one too. Didn't they replace Undertaker at one point?
Yeah, I do recall that.
But they made it an actual storyline.
Yeah. We'll look that up. We'll bring it up.
Yeah.
on a future. Dude, there's so many urban legends. We could probably do 10 episodes on that. Let's make it a new series. We'll do that.
There we go.
Somewhere in urban legends. What's your next one?
So my next one is my favorite.
Okay.
As it involves movies, as I want to do, even though it involves two of my least favorite people in wrestling. It's the idea. There was a little film called No Holds Barred that I believe was Hogan's first starring picture. Let me make sure.
Okay.
But it was him and Tiny Lister, and he basically played like, yeah, that was it. Yeah, he had only been in Rocky 3 up until this point. And he's barely in there. But Hogan plays Rip Thomas. And he goes up again, and he's a pro wrestler, and he's a pro wrestler in a world where wrestling is real, maybe, but not real, maybe. And then he's trying to fight this guy who injured his brother, paralyzed his brother, some nonsense. It is not a good movie.
So it's Rocky, basically.
And one of the reasons that it's probably not a good movie is that rumor has it that Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon locked themselves in a hotel room for like 24 to 48 hours or something like that and fixed the script themselves. And one of the things that, yes, and having things like Hulk Hogan beating up a man and making him poop himself. And then Hulk Hogan goes, "What's that smell?" And the guy goes, "It's Dookie." It's awful. It is an awful movie. And apparently part of that is because Vince and Hogan did not think the script was up to snuff. And I only recently heard something that made this go from urban legend to it has to be true.
Okay.
So the main battle, like event that they're promoting in this movie is called Battle of the Tough Guys.
Okay.
Right? Would you like to know what the original name for WrestleMania was supposed to be?
I didn't know there was a name before WrestleMania. What is it?
It was Vince McMahon wanted to call it the Colossal Tussle. And it wasn't until Howard Finkel talked him out of it and said it should be called WrestleMania.
Howard Finkel coined WrestleMania?
Yep.
What?
But Vince McMahon wanted it to be called the Colossal Tussle. And that is about as good a name as Battle of the Tough Guys. Like, it is one of those things where there are plenty of times I'm sure Vince McMahon has not been argued with or debated with or whatever. And this was just one of those times where he actually listened to someone else.
Could you imagine?
We ended up with WrestleMania.
Imagine.
Yeah. Cody Rhodes beats Roman Reigns at Colossal Tussle 40. It probably would have just been called CT 40 at that point. Just because they're like, we can't call it Colossal Tussle anymore. So that's why I think that one's true. Again, it involves Hogan being the worst. So I'm just going to believe that it's true. And that's where we're at.
The fact that Vince McMahon would have someone crap their pants in a movie actually doesn't surprise me, knowing sort of the things he's into and through certain documents.
All right.
I'm just saying, man. No coincidence there. No coincidence
Good
there.
Lord.
I'm going to go with yes, this is true as well. I could see it for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
All right. I am going on to my number one urban legend, and that is Vince McMahon sent Vince Russo to sabotage WCW. Who killed WCW, Andrew? Well, if you go to the top of the pyramid, it's always Vince McMahon. So I'm going to go ahead and read my little synopsis because I'm a slave to a script, as I've said before. Following the dismissal of Eric Bischoff as executive vice president of WCW, Vince Russo was brought in to oversee creative. He would go on to make many bad creative decisions, such as putting the world title on David Arquette and even booking himself to win the world title. Ratings plummeted, and eventually the plug was pulled on WCW and bought out by the WWE, where Russo originally worked. So, Vince Russo is known to have done many good things for the WWE, but a lot of very bad things. And once he got over to WCW, they were not having it, man. Like, he went up against their political system over there. The NWO was sort of in charge over there, making all the creative decisions and whatnot. And it was just out of control. And Vince Russo just could not. His ego and the egos of many of the other people over there just clashed like even worse than at the WWE. And he just destroyed everything going on over there, which would culminate into the famous Bash at the Beach sort of thing. And yeah,
Crazy.
A lot of people believe that this wasn't just a mistake or a plummeting of ratings that Vince Russo was a part of. They believe that Vince McMahon actually sent him over there to sabotage everything, bring them down, and eventually buy out WCW.
I gotta say, I wouldn't say I believe it, but I would not be surprised if it was true.
Yeah.
Like, when you really think about it, when you think about Vince McMahon, who he is, what he's capable of, what he would try to do, I think Vince Russo still has to get hired over there. You know what I mean? But I guess it would make sense that he could. But then, if anything, it's always like a quid quo pro. Who benefits?
Pro co?
There we go.
Quid pro prid?
Nailed it. No, it was quo prid.
Quid pro quo. No.
There it is. Yep. It's all about.
Yep.
I forgot.
Okay.
There are no pros in this situation, so it's not an exact quid pro quo. But yeah,
pro is Brandon Lee, baby.
Yeah. The thing that's tough with me about this one is, what does Vince Russo get out of it? You know what I mean?
Very good point.
But it's a lot of fun to think about.
He has denied it up and down, up and down. The only person who actually still really believes it, of all people, is Arn Anderson. I found that like yesterday. I was digging into this.
Awesome.
And I was like Charlie from It's Always Sunny. I've got like the board behind me. I'm like, what's it against? Is it real? Is it? And
everybody's saying Arn Anderson, Arn Anderson, Arn Anderson. Then I found out he doesn't even exist.
Arn Anderson is all of us. Yeah. And he still kind of believes that it could be true, which I think is
incredible.
Hilarious. I think it's hilarious. And
man.
I don't know, man. This one is going to keep me guessing, whereas a lot of our other ones on this list, I'm kind of like, yeah, it happened. No, it didn't happen. But we'll never truly know. We'll never truly know.
No. I think it's nice that we had some nice synergy here. We begin with the end of WCW and we end with the end of WCW. I think that really works.
It was just perfect.
Flat circle.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's it for us this week.
Yeah, it was a good episode, man. That was a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. I'll just say it real quick. People can find it. You can find us on Twitter. It's Some Ring Pod. You can find us Somewhere in the Ring Pod on Instagram. Like, if you were typing Somewhere in the Ring in your social media, you're going to find us. Head to patreon.com/Somewhere in the Ring podcast. If you have a favorite urban legend that we did not talk about, email us at somewhereinthering@gmail.com. Or head over to our Facebook group and post about it there. Ryan had put up a question asking for urban legends. We always want more, so send them all over. And
I'm sorry, I just had to breaking news, Andrew. Breaking news here. Somewhere in the Ring. It's official Beef Week t-shirt. This happened. WWE has crossed over with Arby's.
I don't even think I realized that he was standing in a
I'm sorry, I had to put this on you at the end of the show.
Oh my God.
And the reason I know about this is because I am a self-proclaimed Arby's member. I get this skivvy on everything going on over at Arby's. It's my favorite fast food, man. It's my favorite.
Okay.
The only place I go to in New York City. I'll be going there in a couple weeks to the Port Authority Arby's to have my 2 sandwiches, my curly fries, and watch some Dateline. That's just what I do. That's what I do. And it is officially Beef Week, where you can get this t-shirt if you're watching this. It's Beef Week 2024.
Are we plugging Arby's right now? What are we doing?
I guess there's a gun to my head, or I'm just hungry. I don't know. I had to ruin the show. I'm sorry.
I know. I think we should always end on Arby's. No, we should not always. I'm not going to cut that because I don't want you to pull that back on me later. Okay. We have the meats, I guess. And if this means we get Ving Rhames in a wrestling ring, I'll be happy. But oh boy, Ryan, it's great to see you as always.
You too,
love you
buddy.
So much. So much fun this week.
You too.
Everybody, keep on our feed, like, subscribe, review, leave those reviews for us. We'll leave them. We'll read them on the show. And stay tuned. And again, thank you to Lionsgate Sound for backing all of this silliness. Awesome. All right, Ryan. Yeah, ring the bell. Ring the bell. Ring it.
Is it? Did I do it?
I think you nailed it.
It's in the wrist, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
This has been Somewhere in the Ring. Thank you for listening. Subscribe wherever you get your pods, and be sure to rate and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever possible. We'll see you again soon, somewhere in the ring.